Howdy, folks. I realized I kind of skipped an important part that will help you on your homework in the second part of the video when I was talking about reading from the files. So, one of the things that some people noticed, let me switch here, is the one of the homework assignments I give you this list of all these words. And people were kind of going over here and they were counting across and they noticed, hey, there's 12 words in this row. Okay, so you can see here it starts with everyone and it goes to plenty. And so they were coming up with code that sort of looked like this. Okay, so I'm going through and I'm opening up the pile of words, and then I'm going through, and just like we talked about here, I'm going to ask the file to go and grab the line and pull out the pile of words, and let's do something with it. Well, when I run this, you'll notice that I get a little extra here. Okay, and it says that everyone vote farther music came. Okay. And if we kind of do the same thing with the example.txt, which had our things, you remember there were 6 things in that row. If we do the same thing, okay, you'll notice that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then here is a 7th thing. So there's a little snafu in how this is pulling it up. So it's pulling one extra thing. So why is it pulling one extra thing from the thing? Well, it's because I'm checking it for this comma, and you'll notice when we cut over to here, there's no comma at the end of the line. So it's kind of grabbing the plenty, and then it's grabbing the came sort of like one after it. So so one way we could fix this is just to add a comma to the end of this line, and that's like totally fine. But like that's really kind of thinking of it then not as like line. That's really thinking of it as one big file where everything's separated by commas. And so there's kind of like times we want that and times we want this other thing. So I wanted to kind of talk about, well, what do we do then? So there's, and this is kind of where I dropped the ball a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new thing called stream. And stream is kind of an interesting thing. It's short for string stream. And what it lets me do is it actually lets me save these stream things, these stream objects, like something I'd send to cout, which is another kind of stream object, input, output, stream, or something I'd save to a file. It lets me sort of like save it as a variable so I can get it ready before I like send it all the way out. And similarly, I can take something, I can save it into a stream, and then I can access it using some of these things that I've just done. So let me just drop in a little bit of code here, and let me show you the small changes I'm going to do. So I'm going to make a something called item here. So I'm going to make string the line, which is going to be the whole line, and then string the item is basically just going to be like the part I'm grabbing out of the line. So here I'm going to pull a get line to actually grab the whole line. Okay, so I'm going to do get line file to read. So I'm going to read in the pile of words, and then I'm going to grab the whole line. Okay, then I'm going to make a string stream object. Okay, so this is something that's going to work just like cout in the sense that I can like jam arrows to put things into it, but it's not going to a file, it's not going out to the screen, it's actually going into a variable so I can use it later. And this ends up actually being super useful if we ever need to like combine numbers and letters together into like sort of one thing that we want to like then print out later. But it lets us do a cool trick. So I'm going to make the string stream, and then I'm going to shove that whole line into it. Okay, now I'm going to say, well, hey, let's go through that line and grab out everything out of that line. So instead of doing file to read, I'm going to be hitting my string stream SS, and I'm actually going to, in this case, I'm going to save it off as the item, and I'm just going to print out the item. Okay, so I'm making another variable to hold things because I'm grabbing them one by one. So basically what I did is I grabbed the whole line, I saved it off into that string stream, and now I'm going to go through that string stream and look at everything again. So if I give this a quick run, you'll notice that now I'm starting with everyone and I'm ending with plenty. And so I got my last thing. And so there we go. I got everything that I wanted. Okay. And I pulled out that whole line. And so I never got that extra word that I was sort of worried about. So this is just a great way to kind of do it. And we'll actually, some of you might want to use string stream later on. It's a great way to do some interesting tricks. But for those of you that have sort of explored, maybe with tic-tac-toe, there's something called, there's some other things that'll let you format text and do things to text. And so then you could jam it all into a string stream, and you can actually take a string stream and turn it back into a string, and things like that. So if you ever wanted to like stuff a bunch of stuff like you would see out, but then like to get it ready to like maybe send to a file or something like that, you can kind of put it in here and then do something with it a little bit later. But it also shows you the power of getLine, which lets you access other kinds of streams. So you give it the stream type here, you give it the variable that's going to hold things in, and you give it the separator. And so in this case, I'm pulling off things one by one. So sorry I forgot to put that in the other video. It's a nice little thing. Hopefully this will make this string stream problem pretty easy for you. Cheers.